covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Mernier.
Welcoming in fans of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast. Zach Kyleman in here, as always, bringing it in for the latest edition of the show, as we are now in NAL Rebound Week 3, talking about two exciting clashes across the National Arena League this week against a lot of top opponents coming in. A lot of fascinating storylines coming in and now leaving this slate of games heading into Week 4. I'm going to start bringing in my crew in for this game, my good old buddies. First off, of course, my good buddy pal, the co-host himself, the graphics guy, the man of the hour, the guy that puts all the stuff together, Jim Mernier, and of course, former NAL MVP quarterback himself, Mason Espinosa, joining the show for this edition of NAL Rebound. Gentlemen, welcome aboard. Jim, Good to see you, man. How you feeling? Sharks get a really exciting win over at the Crown Coliseum. All things considered, how you doing so far?
Doing good. Doing great. Connor's the best quarterback in the league. I didn't say that. But yeah,
I'm sure you didn't.
No, it was a good weekend. Exciting. Again, another weekend in the NAL where there's no controversy, no drama. So it's great. It's a Week 3. It was a very simple, easy weekend. But yeah, it's a good weekend. So yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, without a doubt. Mason, you probably feel great for Coach Gibson there. A pretty back and forth affair, of course, that we'll talk about shortly. But he gets out the win, and they're 2-1, looking like one of the most imposing teams right now in the National Arena League.
Absolutely. I'm pumped for him. I know, just you break the season up in kind of segments. I knew through that first 4-game stretch, if they can come out of that 3-1, I knew they'd be set up for some success there. So I know he's excited about it, I'm sure, and they played well. They played really well.
Yes, they did, and we're going to be jumping into this one to kick things off. Again, people, we generally jump in 2 games this weekend. We'll talk about some observations here about this week's games. Something, of course, as we brought up in the, I think, the preliminary observations, close games for the most part. Yes, I know the score at the end in Fayetteville was a decisive 20-point victory, but all in all, there were some factors there that kept things apart. These were 4 teams that I think, all of them showed themselves that they can keep up with anybody in this league, or that these are the best of the best. Fayetteville, of course, has a bit of a caveat now. We got the status of Rakeem Cato. We'll talk about that a little bit more momentarily in that game recap, of course. But top-tier football played this week. I thought it was mostly clean, besides 1 or 2 things we'll be debating on. And honestly, we know without a doubt who I think the tops in this league are in this slate. Carolina might have a say, but you can't argue when all these guys are playing at their best. You're going to be guaranteed that it's going to be hard to even see who can end up on top, at least in the top 2 or 3.
Well, top 2 or 3 this year, in my opinion, I know it's only Week 3, but you're clearly seeing the top 3 teams in the league right now. So far from Week 3, San Antonio and Albany lived up to the billing. And the only thing I got to say is I can't wait for the rematch later in the year in San Antonio. Jacksonville is starting to show what type of team they are, especially with a young quarterback filling his gaining experience. Homeboy leads the league in passing right now. I think he leads the league in touchdowns too. Almost every offensive category he leads. So Gibson has found him a gunslinger. He's much younger than Mason here.
Hey, man, calm down.
But
call. I'm not giving him a call again. I got my.
Phone's a little dry right now. No, I'm just kidding.
But overall, especially in the Fayetteville, that game was neck to neck to the halftime until some injuries happen on Fayetteville side. Hopefully all the players get back well soon and fast, because Fayetteville had a scrappy squad. And when they're healthy, they're pretty dangerous. And they showed it 2 weeks ago in Orlando, and they showed it again against Jacksonville in the first half until it started to get away from them in the second half. But there were a lot of situations that were outside the control of the Sharks that, affected Fayetteville. But Cato was doing Cato things. He was, so far, in my opinion, the most improved quarterback from last year until what happened later in the game. But yeah, a good weekend. Of course, up in Albany was an exciting game that was back and forth. What you expected, blow after blow, Castronova versus Nelson. It was a pretty good game. Darius Prince versus Kylie Rashad. well, we did how we hyped it last week and lived up to the billing. It
It did.
stinks that one side has to lose a game, and usually the one side that loses a game is the most vocal fan base. It's the joy of sports.
Well, I think in this matchup, and Mason, you can keep on going with this, but clearly with that one in particular over in the Capital Region, I mean, it comes down to the wire with one play left. I would be shocked if you weren't a fan that at least had something to say at the final play, especially, and again, we'll dive deeper into this, especially the way the circumstances were that surrounded that ending. We'll talk about the ruling of that ending, but I mean, if you're a fan of the Empire, and if you were the Gunslingers and lost on that last possession and thought you were wronged by something like that, I'd be crying foul because I'm a passionate fan, not because I'm saying it's wrong, but because I'm a passionate guy and I'm going, oh no, they totally screwed us in some way. It feels like it. I mean, we see it in college football, NFL, it happens all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you don't want that call to take away from how good of an arena football game was played. Honestly, it's a tough call. It was the way it ended. I can 100% see where Albany comes from. I know we'll dive into it later, but at the end of the day, it's arena football, man, and it's going to come down to it's what this game's designed for. To come down to last possessions and last plays of the game and who can control the clock. Right, we're going to talk about that with San Antonio's coach doing an unbelievable job with the clock, and same thing with Jacksonville and Fayetteville. They were trading. They were dueling scores for a minute there until Cato got hurt. And that's what arena football is all about. I think this weekend, first of all, shout out to the NAL for playing the games at different times. I appreciate that. Didn't feel like I was drinking water through a fire hose. I could actually watch the game a little bit, each one. But, they were good games. And I think that's something fun to see, especially early, is there's a lot of parity right now in the sense that there's good games. I think really – like even West Texas, Carolina played obviously a good game. Fayetteville's played some good games. Obviously, San Antonio's won 3 games by a combined 4 points. Really, the only team that hadn't played in kind of a knockdown, drag-out game right now is Orlando, who you expected more out of. Everyone else has been in close football games so far, so that's good to see. It's healthy for the league and fun to see for fans like me.
Absolutely. Let's dive into some of this incredible action while we're at it. We'll save the game of the week for last, so some of you will probably be like, why are we jumping it forward and then coming backwards? It's okay. We'll don't worry. Stick with us. We'll give you everything you need. But let's dive in. First things first, as again, got to give a shout out to Jim. He's been putting these together these last 2 weeks of these highlight reels because you guys responded really well to these. So here's the deal. We got this coming up here. Sharks, Fayetteville Mustangs. Honestly, until the third quarter, until we saw the signal caller himself, Rakeem Cato, have to go out with a lower leg injury, I didn't know exactly who was going to walk away with this one. There was a hint that maybe the possession battle would switch over thanks to a Justin Carter fumble recovery also in the third quarter that gave the Sharks back that one touchdown advantage, at least in terms of possessions. But these two offenses, it was neck and neck. Mason, you probably got some flashbacks to the fact that first half, it was one score plays, bam, bam, bam for Fayetteville, just instantly. Quick shots downfield. All right, time for the defense to come back out. Oh, my God, we got to go over again and deal with Connor Blount. But, I mean, overall, like, some quality play. It's just too bad that, to me, some of it came down to having to come to an inexperienced QB at the end that also helped seal the deal. Great defense by Jacksonville, in my opinion, to get that fumble recovery and switch things over, because there was none to little of it going throughout this entire one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm transfixed by the highlights here just because, seeing some of this stuff here. It's fun to watch this condensed a little bit. I thought, coming away from it, I was impressed by Fayetteville. I just was. I'm Orlando's got a long way to go. I know that, they beat Orlando. I was curious to see how they stack up with a team like Jacksonville that knows a good football team. And, man, the offenses came out, and that's what it's designed for. That's what this game's designed for. That's why they went to Ironman rules, right? So you can have these games and it's 34-34 at halftime or whatever it is. I love to see Jacksonville. I know Coach Gibson, I would imagine at this point, thinks really highly of this young quarterback, and rightfully so. I know the first couple of weeks just watching very rudimentary. I don't. It's not like I get access to the film or anything, but Coach Gibson does a great job, always has, of being really masterful with run game, screen game, and he did that at a really high level for the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. and you can even see there on your screen, like the first touchdown there was a run play, right? He does a really good job of controlling the jacks, controlling the cases, controlling the tempo with young quarterbacks. But then you see in the second half, he kind of takes the training wheels off a little bit, right? And he's able to push vertical,
Right.
with a lot of these throws, and it really opened up their offense. And then Fayetteville, I thought they were playing really well, especially offensively, until Cato got hurt. It was fun to watch them. It was kind of a different game plan, a different strategy, right? They were sending a lot of vertical stuff with Ings, and Ings is a nightmare. He always has been. If you put him in high motion, send him deep, he's either going to take two or he's going to win the one-on-one. It's really hard, not to be outdone by Cam Solomon, who's got like 90 million touchdowns at this point. So fun arena football game. I mean, just at a very base level, it was exactly what it's designed to be, and touchdowns all over the board.
Yeah, I mean, talk about it without doubt. The Sharks, didn't matter what happened, what response Fayetteville was given. It was just crisp, clean. Every possession was a score. They had no stops whatsoever. Defensively, I don't think Fayetteville really just knew what to do. And quite frankly, I don't think Fayetteville knew how to penetrate the offensive line of Jacksonville. I loved what the pocket was looking like for Connor Blount. No pressures, nothing to worry about. It looked nothing like week 1 against West Texas in that first quarter where you see Connor scrambling. Like every highlight you watch of him throwing a pass, he has such a comfortable cushion to deliver his throws. That is so helpful for a young arena QB like that to kind of settle down and just look things through. Cato, not as much, but credit. Cato's got that athletic ability to where all he has to do is maneuver away. He can sidearm it. He can throw it off to the side if he wants, and kind of all around in different kind of angles. He's very flexible. Connor is too, but I mean, look at that. That's gorgeous pocket. Just sets up. He is 2 to 3 yards just on that touchdown pass alone down the field to George Smith on that one. One of the best plays of the day, without a doubt. He is caught up. He has very much progressed in such a quick manner. I have really been blown away at how Connor Blount's come to play, and that's huge for Sharks fans. They've been wanting to, Arvell Nelson last year, you didn't know if he'd see him back. Having Connor come in, they took a bit of a shot with him, and Gibson's found his guy. We were wondering. He pulled it off, Jim.
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. I guarantee Mason knows this too. Jacksonville has a history of, if you don't perform as a QB, they want you gone quick, period. Connor has come in and has just showed out all 3 games. Even in the last week's loss to San Antonio, he showed out. In this game, there's a couple of routes in this game I watched that they were running 2 verts, and they were wide open. Like, Fayetteville was nowhere near the guys. I'm like, where are the DBs of Fayetteville? There's no safety back there. This is not outdoor football. Like, what are you doing? And Connor's just sitting back there. 2-step, 3-step. Look, he's sitting in the pocket. He can have a picnic back there. He was in North Carolina. That's Bo Jangles territory. He can get himself a number 2 combo with some biscuits. That's what Connor was doing in that game this past week, and that gives all the credit to the big hog mollies up front. They were protecting him. And one thing I noticed in this game, the line of scrimmage was being completely owned by Jacksonville. Jacksonville was dominating the whole line of scrimmage the entire game. That's why towards the beginning of the second half, you saw an offensive line for Fayetteville just could not stand toe-to-toe with Jacksonville because Renfro was in the backfield. Holiness was in the backfield. Gilbert was in the backfield. It was just causing havoc to Cato. And eventually, Cato was getting sacked, made some bad decisions. And, of course, he went down with the injury. Then the backup came in, and there was the same progression of the defense, just getting in the backfield and just tormenting Fayetteville. And when Jackson was getting the ball, it was when the game was out of hand, it was pitch and catch. Like, they were having fun. Jordan Smith having fun. Solomon having fun. I always mispronounce the guy's name, but Jansen. He was going off. It was a good game for Jacksonville. And like what Mason said in the start of this thing, Jacksonville starts 3-1 in this 4-game stretch. They're right in the mix. And you still got to play San Antonio again, still got to play Albany again. But this is a much better start than what Jacksonville did last year. Jacksonville was 0-4 last year. They couldn't get out of their own way. We had until Nelson came, and then everything got situated. It's nice that Jacksonville has a quarterback that understands the game. Only 3 weeks into his career in the arena game, and based on the stats, he's currently number 1 in all the categories. So that tells one thing to me, Gibson's a hell of a coach, got this young guy in, and Jacksonville is rolling like they are right now. They're only one play away of being undefeated. People are saying, well, San Antonio's 3-0. Yeah, San Antonio's 2 plays away or 3 plays away of being 0-3.
Shows you how good the top 3 is, though. That's what I take away from that.
And that's what I was about to go to is I know we've had requests from people on our show, so we need to start doing T-shirts into the muck, like how we always talk about the muck.
Okay.
Jacksonville now, Jacksonville, Albany, and San Antonio are not the muck teams. They are the top 3 teams in the league, and I think you're going to start seeing that, and eventually you're going to see the start of separation between those 3 teams.
Maybe
but
so.
That's just and this week against Orlando will clearly show where the 2 teams are. But in this game overall, the guy that I was really impressed in this game was Jordan Smith. He was making catches like crazy, made a big catch at the end of the game. But he basically gave Solomon a chance to him shine. Because you know how when we were down Darian Townsend, then we were down McLean, Jackson's like, okay, we need a number 2 now. He comes right in, and Solomon's still declared number 1, but Solomon can actually do work now, knowing that he doesn't have to put the whole team on his back with Smith showing out. So, and that gives all credit to Blunt too. He's how you say, Zach, diversifying the portfolio.
I like having multiple targets. It's easier if you have one guy, and credit, Darius Prince, I think, is the exception to the rule in this case.
Of course.
But generally, if you have one person you can focus in on it and do basically a Belichick and say, okay, who else is going to beat me? Because that's what worries me if you get that. You need to have able to have targets that I think are on the same page with your quarterback right away. Jordan Smith, and again, NAL stats, we always put an asterisk on it, but they have been getting better this year. I'll give that props to teams. They've been putting them a lot more accurate from the looks of it. Finished leading the Sharks receiving corps, 136 yards receptions as well, 2 touchdowns. Cameron Solomon had 4, so that was the tops, but still broke the century mark. He had 3 receivers break the 50-yard mark, which I think is an excellent stat line for that core because you want to see that kind of spread out. But having 2 guys that break the century mark and you can't even protect or defend, fantastic. And yeah, Smith, he's been progressing much the same in the background as the weeks have gone by. He also had 10 tackles this week. He had 6 tackles. Gorman had 10. I misread the stat sheet, but 6 tackles as well on the opposite side of the field too. And I believe, nope, that's the wrong thing. I was reading a pass breakup, but that's not the case. But 6 tackles his own, 136 yards passing, not too shabby of a day. And right now, I think it's offense anyone's game, just like you're seeing, and much like Mason pointed out, Iron Man's helping kind of, whether it's getting tired, whether it's just kind of that slog of the game as it goes, it should open up more plays, more end of the game type of crazy scenarios like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing, not to make this a Jacksonville Sharks podcast, and it doesn't bother Jim any, but
we'll talk about Cato and company in a second. It's just got to get all those out of the way. First of all, we're having for the victories.
For sure. I'm just excited to see the progression of Jacksonville, and when they start, what's going to happen as teams defend their style of play right now, right? Especially early in the games, there are a lot of screens, a lot of run, a lot of jack control, stuff like that, which is awesome, very effective for sure. I'm very excited to see what happens when teams get out of, like you're seeing right there, that's a zone coverage. We're getting into cloud stuff. We saw some busted sky. Trying to think back and remember at least San Antonio from the past and watching a little bit of the game last week as well, knowing they're typically a zone-based defense as well. What happens when teams are going to start running up and getting in their face, right? Starting to get hands on receivers, and now you're throwing man-based throws instead of zone-based throws, and those are a little different, right? But what I do think, and where I think Jacksonville is going to have the advantage is nobody can cover Cameron Solomon man-to-man right now. I mean, even when they're trying, like there's a couple of touchdowns he had where they were in man and he had like 6 yards of separation. So, it's kind of pick your poison right now, but, I'm just curious to see that progression. I'm excited to see, right, when teams get up and start challenging him and playing less zone, kind of just what happens,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, better. That's the thing. One thing Fayetteville showed defensively, that, like I said, they felt kind of lost a little bit. Both. I think really both of them were going toe for toe, pound for pound offensively, but eventually they just too much overwhelming at this point. And that's saying something when you have like a Trey Long on the opposite side, that's been able to contribute. And last game against the Preds, they were able to get pressure. I was talking with Jim in our game day session last week. I thought second half they would turn up the heat. They couldn't turn up the heat. So without being able to do that and have the same formula against the Predators, you saw what happened. A good QB, he's able to find his marks and just keep on going. And, that's all the story showed. Also, of course, Rakeem Cato, which let's dive in on Rakeem Cato here. That's great game. It's really a damn shame, though, when you have someone that has been playing as well as he has through almost 2 games now, go out with what looks to have been a severe lower leg to ankle injury on the turf. And they dealt with a few injuries. Trey Long went out for a spell, came back in. Chris Page obviously having his own, but Rakeem Cato going out, that ended the Mustangs' chances without a doubt late in the third. Dondre Borrell, I'll give him credit for stepping out there in a backup role, but he was not prepared. The line definitely is more fit for Cato's mobility. Burrell's not very well good at maneuvering the pocket with kind of the status of that offensive line in Fayetteville, and it really sank their game. It was a shame to see because Cato has been one of the best early season stories in the National Arena League, having what has already been looking like much improved play than he had last year in Orlando.
Cato, in my opinion, again, this is only week 3, night and day compared to last year. And I think the reason why is one man, that's Kendrick Ings. Kendrick Ings has been his number one go-to receiver so far this season. And what Mason just mentioned just earlier in the show is that no one can cover him right now. He's either one-on-one, he's going to beat you one-on-one, or he's going to take the short route and then beat you, miss a tackle, and run down the field. Kendrick Ings is the weapon in Fayetteville, and he's a fan of the show, and he's been on the show multiple times. I think that's a main reason why you see Cato playing so well now. It's because of Ings. And Chris Page, again, week 1 against Orlando, Chris Page showed out. It's for Fayetteville, yes, last week, you lost to Jacksonville. You were toe-to-toe with Jacksonville in the first half, then stuff happened with the injuries, and Jacksonville pulled away. You're honestly, right now, if it ended the day, the season ended the day, that Fayetteville versus San Antonio playoff game will be pretty freaking exciting to watch because they're 2 explosive offenses. Just hopefully Cato is healthy enough where if he misses a couple of weeks, it's good. So they have a chance to still stay in the mix. But in my opinion, how Fayetteville has played so far these first 2 games, they have really impressed me as an organization. The broadcast quality, same, impressed me. Everything was good so far in Fayetteville. It just stinks that, again, in this game that we love, one has to win, one has to lose, and this week was Fayetteville. But for Fayetteville fans, keep your chins up. You have a lot of promising young stars. You have Kendrick Ings, who's going to be a stud throughout the year. If the backup gets some playing time, just throw the Ings. He'll be there. He'll help you. Just give it to Ings, all right? That's your game plan next week. But all other guys on the team that I was surprised we didn't see a lot of Larry Beavers. I would expect we see a lot of him. We didn't see a lot of them.
He did get a touchdown pass later on in this contest, but I was very much feeling like they were kind of like, I would say, incrementing him in. And credit, this is something that I like that Fayetteville has done, at least Cato has done really well. You look at the stat sheet for the Mustangs, they have, double checking here, they had 9 targets that got a reception on Sunday. So very much good at kind of spreading out the wealth. James Summers only had 1 catch, which was surprising to me on the stat sheet. Larry Beaver's obviously newer, but I understood that. But I mean, overall, I think that you're talking to the point though, and you can elaborate that he's probably going to see more touches as these games go on.
Correct.
Because he's a great asset to their roster in terms of not just a receiver, but overall as an Iron Man player we saw last season in Orlando.
Well, I think, and as the team gets better throughout the season, if they get healthy, they have a lethal core with James Summers, Larry Beaver, Chris Page, and Kendrick Ings. I guarantee if Mason was still playing quarterback, he's like, I want that receiving core. Like, geez. For me, you watch this game, and it was just how, like Mason mentioned, it was toe-to-toe, and it's like they couldn't keep up with Jacksonville. It was eventually the extra points were coming back to bite them. and it just started rolling downhill to what happened to the end of the game. Uh, it's just an interesting game because I was watching this game as a fan. Of course, as a fan, I'm aggravated and mad. It's like, what the heck's going on? I'm dropping F-bombs. But when I watched the game again and I started looking at things like man, Fayetteville was this close of getting that touchdown for them to break the game open. It really came down to that very first possession in the second half where that pivotal turnover happened. That really flipped the game on to Jacksonville's side. But toe-to-toe with Jacksonville, it's pretty impressive, and especially what they did down in Orlando. They're small things. Again, they have a good squad. The one guy I was surprised I didn't hear a lot of his name was Shai Hill on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
He was really a weapon in Jacksonville last year. Really didn't hear his name a lot against Jacksonville this game, and I think that really affected Fayetteville, because if you're not hearing Fayetteville defensive players' names, you're usually not having a good game. It means the offense is doing all their work. But for Fayetteville, you're 1-1, and you're telling me that if you take 1-1 right now after 2 games, I will. Now you're going to the expansion game next week between them and West Texas. So we'll see how difference between those two teams are. But yeah, it's one loss. But I like how I really am very impressed with what Fayetteville is right now. And again, there's still 12 more games in the season for them. So it's still a young season.
Mm-hmm.
Still only week 3. Still a lot more football to be played.
Mason, any other thoughts on Fayetteville? Maybe just kind of what you can go, maybe like the status moving forward. Say Cato's not in. How do you get a guy like, say, Burrell up to speed in even a week, or if any short term that you can maybe give quick tips for?
Yeah, it's hard. It just is, right? If you haven't played a lot of arena football and haven't physically taken a lot of snaps, it's just hard. You just do what you can. The problem is everyone just says, "Oh, well, yeah, coach is going to get him ready, during practice and have all these." People don't realize once you get in the season, you don't have a lot of practice reps, because guys like Kendrick King just got done running 65 routes on Saturday and took 30 hits. Like, he's going to be resting up to make sure that he can play at full speed on Saturday. So it's just hard, right? I think the most you can do is game plan, right? You simplify it. You make easy high-low reads. You don't do, the most complex stuff in the world where people are going to pop wide open, because it doesn't matter if they pop wide open, your quarterback doesn't see it. You're not going to give them the ball anyway. So make it simple, make it easy. Use your running game, use your screen game. Control the box, control the game, slow it down. And arena football is a crazy game. Just put yourself in it in the fourth quarter, and you just never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
And Mason, I got one. This is that you've played the game for many years. Here's a question: if you were in Fayetteville right now, especially after what you'd happened to Jacksonville and what you did against Orlando, how much film do you look back the last 2 games prepping for, let's say, against West Texas? Or do you just throw those film away and just concentrate on West Texas?
I think it's a mix of both. I mean, I think it's, you take what you can from it, and then you move on like any game. I think the biggest thing an athlete craves is stability. You want to know exactly, they say it's a 24-hour rule, right? You sulk for 24 if you lose, or you celebrate for 24 if you win, and then it's over,
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just kind of take the film, take what happens here, take the good, take the bad, understand there's a lot of football left to play, and move on. And just do that, especially if you had a young quarterback come in the game and struggle. Like, he knows he struggled. Everyone on the team knows he struggled. Like, you don't have to sit there and relive it on film for the next 3 days. Move on, right? And
Right.
Create some positive momentum going into practice and going into game week, and go out and play well in what's a very winnable game. At the end of the day, a loss, and you can come out of next week at 2-1, and you're going to be really happy as an expansion team for sure.
Yeah, and it'll be a fun matchup. They're going to go to West Texas. The 2 expansion teams visiting next week. Fayetteville, though, going to have to get some things in order after we saw the Warbirds did kind of figure out themselves the week prior over in Carolina. So a little bit more interesting storyline than, say, week 1. West Texas looks a little more imposing, and they get to play at home. So quick turnaround. Coach Gunnings has a bit of a challenge on his hands, but he'll have to get some things sped up, or we'll see the transaction wire pop. You never know. The NAL is always infamous for
road
being
trip too.
yeah, well, that too. The road trip also out to Odessa will be fascinating. But I mean, hey, anything can happen in a week, and as we know, the NAL, anything's possible for a person joining last minute. Or Rakeem Cato might even be okay. He did kind of put out a Facebook post, kind of. He wasn't implying it, but he left it very ominous as to his status on his injury. So we will see how that goes. Anything else we'll see on Friday when the injury report drops. So very much keeping an eye on that story moving ahead.
I will say this about Fayetteville real quick, and we'll move on, I know, but to me, right, this is where you start seeing what organizations are going to be made of. I know nothing about Fayetteville. I know nothing about what they're doing. I'm just speaking in generalities right now.
Sure.
It's a long road trip. You're coming off a Sunday game. How do the players get there, and what state do they get there? Are they fresh? Are they fresh? Are they ready to play? That probably means they traveled pretty well. That probably means that they didn't cut corners in travel and expenses and making sure their players are refreshed versus, you see some teams, unfortunately in our league, maybe that were expansion that are no longer around that. Maybe they started being pretty competitive, and then as they got through the season, all of a sudden they weren't quite as competitive. The toll of the season, especially this travels, it's a lot, right? And it just, to me, I love seeing these games because I like to see how organizations treat their players, right? And if the players come out fresh, ready to play, to me, that's a sign the organization's doing a great job in treating their players well. Where if they come out a little stagnant, maybe a little slow-legged, maybe a guy or two doesn't play that you'd expect to play, it's probably a sign of something, that probably should be addressed, I guess what I would say.
Right. I mean, well, and everyone has their own way of getting about things. I'll point this out just because we remember last year. And again, this was during a weird time with San Antonio's own history, but they had to do a 21-hour bus drive over to Carolina. They did get things fixed up, but that was one of those things like early out of the gate, they had to get that adjusted. But you're
100% right. Look at the difference from San Antonio where they started last year. If I'm not mistaken, they went through an ownership change kind of, at some point. And then look how they finished the year. I mean, they were a totally different team just because, the players are the players, man. They're professionals. They know how to play, but you have to treat them like professionals. And if you do, they're going to perform at a high level for you.
Oh, yeah. I think that Fayetteville, at least our opinion, is that the ownership of Fayetteville is indeed doing the best they can to provide the best stuff. So that is something we have the most faith in this week, and that's great because to me as well, like you're talking, that leaves like coaching staff that lets them focus a little more. You don't have distractions on the side.
Yeah.
Same for players, as long as you get out there and you can perform. And again, if they figure this out, it should be a fun competitive game in West Texas that we'll have a great time analyzing later in the week. But yeah, I agree. I mean, travel is a massive factor that does affect players' readiness. It's a normal thing in arena to talk about that aspect because it's not always, I would say 100% science like bigger leagues. It is definitely its own facet of the game within the game.
1,000%.
And I think Mason knows because he's been on a few road trips
I've
himself.
been on both. Hey, I've been on both sides of it, fellas. I cannot tell you. Oh man, I'll have some stories for you off camera. It's some fun stuff.
We'll talk after the show. Keep that one noted. We'll go into the game of the week. 2 games this week. Jumping you back a day on our recap, but still, it was a great way to lead off the week as the Gunslingers traveled to the Capital Region. It was about as advertised as you expected. Things were looking a little dicey for San Antonio early on in the second quarter, but sure enough, that Gunslingers defense did basically a repeat of the story they had against Jacksonville. Had a 21-point turnaround, made things interesting. We saw, and Jim, you can correct me on this, I think it was 5-6 lead changes in the second half that led and resulted in the final possession at the buzzer. We had 2 seconds on the clock. It was 5.
5 lead
Thank
changes.
you. It was 5 or 6. We talked about this post game with actually the San Antonio crew that was following the game alongside with us, and without a doubt, it came down to one play, basically 2 seconds on the clock. You have Khalid Rashad stands up, gets whacked up through the middle. Something you watch on replay. He got basically really kind of clobbered in the middle, keeps his balance, turns the corner on really kind of an out route, catches a touchdown, silences the crowd, everyone goes home. The arena died quickly on that broadcast. It went from massive decibels to just complete silence, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. Obviously, one aspect of the finish we'll discuss in just a second. But Mason, I'll give you here thoughts initially on this contest. Obviously, two of the best teams in the NAL coming toe to toe, and it led up to what was advertised on Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, this is high level football. It's high level arena football, high level quarterback play, high level offense, high level defense. You just saw a little bit of everything, and that's what you want. That's what you want as a fan. That's what you want, even if you don't know the kind of the technical aspects of what they're looking at. You saw a little bit of everything, and it's fun watching. Again, I'm watching the highlights here, and I was thinking back to the game because I was just enthralled by this game. You got to see again a little bit of everything, a little bit of gamesmanship in between, a little bit of game management, a little bit of clock management, some high drama. It's just what you want, right? If every game was like this, we'd have, we'd be very, very happy as fans. So it was a fun game to watch. Two really good quarterbacks, by the way. I know, obviously, we know Arvell and we know his track record. Obviously, I'm getting to know Castronova a little bit more. I saw him a little bit last year and seen him this year. And from where 2 years ago, I saw from where he came from to where he is now. He's a completely different player. Hats off to that young man. He's figured it out.
He has certainly continued to be one of the studs in this league.
Yep.
And I mean, it was two of arguably the best QBs in this league right now. In the fact that you also have Arvell Nelson on the other side, who, again, we've talked about this, does take some risks, had some plays not pan out for him, but one thing that's helped him is that he keeps at it, and that defense for the Gunslingers, like those upgrades that Fred Shaw and company made on the offseason with some top-tier guys, they have really panned out, because that is the second straight game. They have been down 2 possessions, and they have swung it because of a defensive stop, turnovers, just basically saying, we're going to settle down, we're going to do our thing, and we're going to get ourselves righting the ship really quick. And they did it. And this game could have easily gotten out of hand at that point. It is hard to flip the script like that in this style of play. And you got to give props to Fred Shaw and company for getting those defensive stops when it mattered. And as I think Mason, I don't mean to let Jim have to sit on the sidelines a little more on this, but you were hinting at this. The clock management for that final drive has not been talked about enough. They killed, I believe it was about 1:10 on the clock for an arena game. They just slowly, methodically chipped their way down about 40 yards.
Yeah.
And got it to where it was with 1 second and saying, we get to decide how our fate is at the end of this game, not you having to give a Hail Mary off a net, not you with a return. This is on us if we lose.
Yeah. And that's all you can ask for. I mean, I joked about it earlier, but like that last drive would have made, Jay Gruden proud. Like that is old school AFL arena football that he kind of conducted there. Hats off to Coach Shaw. That was impressive. I knew when he's done it a couple games now. Crap, he did it right before half of this game too. They scored in the last possession.
Yeah. And
flipped the possessions. This game's all about possessions. And when he got the ball back, within striking distance of a touchdown, I think they were down 4, if I'm not mistaken, with a little over 3 minutes left. It's right at that point where it's like, what's he going to do? And then he throws a screen and then another screen. And I even think the announcers were like, kind of what's going on? But it was picture perfect, because if you start rolling those clocks and you get inside 1 minute, if you have the ball inside 1 minute with under, 6 points to score, that's what you want, right? And you don't want to score too much time, because at the end of the day, if you're going to lose, at least you're going to lose with the ball. You didn't lose by them doing another thing, because at the end of the day, this game is designed to score, right? It's not like regular football. You're expected to score. You're more or less expected to, hold serve, if you will. So if you have the ball last, I'd rather run the clock out and have the ball last where I'm supposed to score than score with 30 seconds left and, they get the ball back. It happened last year. I go back to last year, but it happened I saw it myself last year in San Antonio. They scored too early, and, we got the ball back with, I think, 20-something seconds left, and it was just enough time. Like, that's just what arena football is designed for. You're designed to score, so you want to have the ball last. And I thought it was absolutely masterful the way they did it, and hats off. That's how arena football is supposed to be played. So really, really, really well done by them.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, here's the other thing that I think that was great about that moment is now this is something with the Nets, and I bring this up. We haven't seen it really done too much. There's been one or two good plays off the Nets for rebounding passes this year. Funny enough, the Gunslingers, Khalil Rashad, had the best highlight the previous week against Jacksonville for this. But if you give the ball back to Albany with maybe like 5 seconds, maybe you get a kickoff return. The returner, if it's in play, takes a knee, or it goes outside underneath the end zone, like a lot of these have been doing this year.
Yeah.
Or as you've been seeing with Drew Pearson, he pops it up. Well, okay, you start off with some time. Now you just throw a Hail Mary and you hope to God someone comes down with it. And that's relying on that somebody out jumping and outmaneuvering Darius Prince, even at 75% in this contest, to come down with the ball. That's a hard ask.
Yeah.
Philip Barnett's a tall guy. I bet he would definitely challenge him because he does play those two ways, but that is still a tall order for him or Arthur Hobbs or those guys if you get that shot. So that's also what's beautiful. 1 second, that's it. Sorry, bye-bye. See you later. No Castronova, no company over there. We get to call game. Tough luck.
And to take you down the rabbit hole a little bit, you got me fired up. But let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit for a second here. Okay, put your coaching hat on. Because they're up by 4, right? Albany's up by 4. San Antonio scores. Imagine there's 12 seconds on the clock. Okay?
Oh, God.
You're up by 2. What do? Do you kick it? Do you go for 2? You probably kick it, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make it a 3-point game. It's arena football. The field's 50 yards long with rebound nets. So you're stuck with a choice, right? Do I either kick it to a really dynamic returner for Albany who's already returned one for a touchdown, right? Do I try to kick one off the net? Even if he doesn't take it back for a touchdown, you're probably at least somewhat close to field goal range. Do you kick it out of bounds? Well, now there's the problem because now it's 1 point for the team. Now you're only up by 2. A field goal loses it for you, right? On top of it, like you said, a Hail Mary, I don't, I probably should know this, but I don't know the exact NAL rules, but I know that the rebound nets back in the day in the AFL where if you threw the ball off the net, all pass interference penalties were gone. They were null and void. You could do whatever you want.
I have the rules set with me, and I'm going to pull that back up while we're on this, and I'll pull it at the end. But I am 90% sure that rule did translate over when they added the nets. Because here's the thing. It comes off the nets. In the old game, it's out of bounds. So you're pretty much saying, all right, you got the assist. Now everyone should be vying for the ball. There's no trying to pull back shoulders or anything. I'm 90% sure. I'll pull this up before we are done recording, so you'll all hear the confirm on this.
Yeah.
But I do remember that was the AFL rule back, at least their last season, 2019. You could go for it, Screw
Honestly,
it. It's a net. It's all fair game. Shark feeding frenzy.
Seriously, that's the last play you work on. Like you take a drop, you send everyone to the right side of the net, you call WWF, and you send your fullback out there, and you throw it high off the net, and you just turn it into a big wrestling match. Mm-hmm. And, you have one guy standing there while everyone else is trying to take people out. Like, it's a hard play to defend, especially when you're playing defense and your back is to the net when everyone else is running to the net. It's just a hard play to defend. So I didn't mean to cut you off, Jim. I just, I'm about that in the game situation.
I was just going to say, do they even throw flags on Hail Marys? even in the outdoor game?
To be fair. To be fair on that.
I was if it's not Aaron Rodgers throwing the Hail Mary, definitely there's no flag going to be thrown.
Fair enough.
I was just saying.
I mean, that's the other side of the coin. I'd probably be losing it too if they threw a flag in a Hail Mary scenario like that. Get one more play.
I think the NFL is supposed to hold their flag in that type of scenario.
Generally, they try to.
Yeah. Unless it's completely blatant. But then again, there's a lot of questionable situations for that outdoor game. One thing I liked about this game up in Albany is that both teams went blow for blow, but San Antonio did something that only 2 other teams have done, and that's beat Albany, and that's Carolina and Jacksonville. What San Antonio did is that they answered every touchdown that Albany did. And they also did not kill themselves with stupid penalties. You see every team, Orlando was holding, offsides, high motion, jack out of the box, illegal defense all last week. Orlando played a terrible game. and they were shooting themselves in their foot. You don't do that when you play Albany. San Antonio did not do that. I think they had maybe two penalties, and I think it was an offsides and a holding, but that was in the first half. Also, one thing I noticed in this game is Arvell Nelson had his one blemish that he always does every game. He throws that one interception. You're like, Arvell, what are you doing? He did that in the first quarter. He got that out of his system in the first quarter. When he did that, he wasn't perfect, but Arvell, the rest of the game was as equal as Sam Castronova the entire game. Like Albany could not stop Nelson, and San Antonio could not stop Sam Castronova, and it was good. And also, you saw the battle between Khalil Rashad and Darius Prince. Those two guys were both showing out both sides. And you got you got Wade, and you had Philip Barnett that were shining. But one of the things that really changed the narrative in this game, and I mentioned it in the game day, was whose offensive line / defensive line wins the battle will win this game. And I watched the game again. I like to watch the linemen. I'll call it a draw. No side of the ball won this dang game because either the offensive side of San Antonio was winning the ball, and then when you flipped on the other side of the field, Albany's offensive side was doing it. It's like the defense weren't doing anything, but there were plays during the game where you go, yeah, I can see where San Antonio made adjustments. I can see where Albany made adjustments to counteract the line of scrimmage battle because it was just the muck, basically. It was just hog mollies and the line of scrimmage, not winning the battles. But when you have quarterbacks like Sam Castronova and Nelson who are mobile, who can get out of the pocket, who have accurate arms, that helps an offensive line, especially in the Iron Man game, to really just control their self. While when they're on defense, they can't really go 100% because they're, conserving for their quarterback. And that's one thing I've noticed in the Iron Man game over the last 2 years. But one of the key plays in this game was before the controversy of this game was a 3rd and 9 where it was getting loud and it was getting crazy in the building. And San Antonio had the ball, and the offensive line just opened up. And Nelson had a 13-yard run with no one around him. And I was watching the game, and I'm like, how does Albany allow that hole open up that big and let Arvell just walk into the end zone? When that happened, there's a highlight right there. Just walks into the end zone, clear 13 yards. Like, that was a game changer right there because San Antonio went down, or Albany got the ball, went down and scored. But that was a crucial 39 that Albany usually makes that play, and it's turnover on downs, and they get the ball back. That never happened in the second half. San Antonio went blow for blow with Albany and went toe-to-toe with them where very few teams can. And that's all the credit to the man on the sideline and Coach Shaw, who's been reposting a lot of our posts on social media because we gave him bulletin board material in preseason. And and Coach Shaw, I'm going to just say, that's Mason's fault, not mine. Or is that?
Wow.
Fair enough.
But overall, I'm like, when this game ended, I'm like, I can't wait till these two teams face in San Antonio because that could literally be the game of who gets the number 1 seed this year in the playoffs. It could come down to that game again. This was a highly entertaining game with the stars of this league shining. And it was pretty much a clean game throughout the game until the controversial ending that happened. But it's still, I think these are two juggernaut teams in our league.
Yeah,
and this is only the first of 2 battles, possibly 3 battles, but right now only the first 2 battles. But yeah, it's a good game. But it was, again, San Antonio won this game by 2 points. We're friends with the broadcast crew of San Antonio. We were discussing this on our Discord page. The link's in our description. San Antonio's been fighting fire and fire. So they won 1 point week 1. Week 2, they won week 2. So why not just double or nothing and win by 2 the next game? So basically they doubled up their winning total to this game. So, but overall, it was a good win for San Antonio. But again, it's Albany. They got Carolina next week. I feel bad for Carolina next week if that is the game. Albany, yeah, they have a man. They're going to be on the mission. But for San Antonio, a very impressive win. in this game. I did pick Albany to win this one, so I get another L on my pick 'em. But again, yes, Travis Shaw, you can throw the stuff in our face because we love it when we're wrong. But yeah, 3-0, good start. And here's a fun fact. So I guarantee Mason may not know this fact, and I guarantee Zach may not know this fact. Here's a fun fact. Every team who has started 3-0 in the National Arena League has made the playoffs 100% of the time.
Oh, that's a good
Fun
percentage.
fact.
That's a fun fact. So 3-0 means you're in history of the NAL.
I'll do it
for the playoffs. So no pressure, San Antonio.
No worries, right?
Yeah.
Keep it going. We do got to talk about, of course, as you hinted at, the one instance that has been, I think, a little bit of a hot button debate in our circles, the jack out of the box / interception review at the end of this contest. The one that really allowed San Antonio to get a few more downs to then try with 1 second left. And, it's already in the highlights. If you're actually seeing this on YouTube, you can kind of see what we're talking about right now. So here's the scene. It is currently 3rd and 10, fourth quarter, 15 seconds on the clock. You have Arvell Nelson take the snap at the 7-yard or 6-yard line. It looks like, the 11-yard line. I have space in my words. The 11-yard line on Albany's side of the field. Again, there's 2 more downs here, but Arvell drops back to pass. He fires one into the back left corner of the end zone. And you see Trayvon Shorts come back in coverage, who is playing at the time the jack linebacker position. You have 2 defenders going for the ball. Also, I believe Philip Barnett is who the target there is. Mm-hmm. Chaos ensues in the corner. Barnett doesn't come down with it, but Shorts comes out of the pile with the football. And at the time, this was called incomplete for the pass. Shorts does come up, says that they need to challenge it and look at this review. It goes to review to look at the interception call. Now, credit, if this goes turned over, game's over. Albany gets to take a knee. We go home. The Empire are going to go away with their own 2-0 streak out of the gate. However, replay comes back. They say it was an interception, which of course gets the crowd rowdy, but it's an illegal defense. Jack out of the box call, which means 5-yard penalty, automatic first down. And a lot of people, including Mr. Shorts as well, have had their own mentions on this. And I think a lot of people have 2 prongs on this. 1, is it jack out of the box? 2, why did you review jack out of the box if the challenge was for an interception? I'll go with that first part, and then I'll let Jim and Mason talk about the jack out of the box. Here's the deal. The NAL with this rule set, you can look at everything in a replay. It's not just the interception. They can look at all aspects, all penalty levels, all challenge levels. They're allowed to do that. So, yes, they did look at the interception. It was a pick off the wall. It was a great pick because I'll tell you, if he's not labeled as jack out of the box, that's an amazing interception for Shorts in terms of arena. This game's over, and we're going to be talking about that as the final play. But truth be told, he, at least to us, our opinion, it's fringe, but it does look like to us, and I'll let Jim and Mason explain that it was out of the box, and they are allowed to look at that. That is allowed in the NAL rule set that they can review and check all these aspects. You got to give credit to those refs. They did a good job checking all signs of this and looking at all parts of this play. Jim, Mason, I'll let you two get the discussion going on this. What do you see that puts it as instituting a jack out of the box on this play?
For this play, how the rule of the jack out of the box, where Shorts is at right there on the 8-yard line. A jack can only go sideline to sideline when he's covering. Exactly what happened to Jacksonville game with Jensen getting flagged for jack out of the box was a completely clean play. He went sideline, got flagged for it. That's weird. But in this, it goes sideline. So basically for wall to wall is what Shorts is supposed to do. Right when I think the ref when they did the review on this, let me zoom it in. Watch Shorts. Right when the ball snapped, his first indication is he's already backpedaling. He's already in his backpedaling position. That right there, you're in violation of a jack out box because the jack is only supposed to go side to side. Yes,
well, here's the thing. Right there, he's not illegal. You're allowed to go sideline to sideline as long as you're within 5 yards. The umpire is standing there at the 6-yard line. You can do whatever you want as long as you're not deeper than the umpire. when the quarterback has the ball in the pocket in his hand.
All right, okay, but
I'm with you. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
it's still
Yeah,
side.
no.
It's still side to side. But what I think when they did the review of this play, they looked at look how he's positioned. A lot of jack linebackers are not positioned that way. They're usually still their back is still towards the defense. He's completely vert and already turning. He's already selling that he's turning. So when the umpire sees him right there, the linesman's right there looking at him. You're already turning for that. And look at Nelson. Nelson still has the football right here. And he still has, and the football still, Nelson still has the football, and Shorts is clearly past the ref.
Yep.
That's illegal. That's illegal defense. And when the ball was thrown, yes, it was a good interception. It was a good catch, but he was already backpedaling. A lot of referees, what I've noticed, I've watched a couple of the games, especially the one in Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. They threw the flag on, I think it was McLean for out of the box. I rewatched the video. It's because McLean's first step was he backpedaled. He didn't go sideways, and they threw a flag because he went backwards. Again, Shorts did this, and what's very fun. This is why I want to. If you have a chance to watch the live stream again, ladies and gentlemen, go watch the first interception for Nelson to Traylon Shorts. Nelson, you can hear Nelson yell at the referee. He goes, "The guy is out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Stop! Like throw the flag." Nelson was pointing, and every time, during the game they scored a touchdown. Nelson, you hear the Nelson run by the referee. He's still out of the freaking box. Like, do your job. And then they threw the flag this time. Like, the referees were getting, like, they were getting yelled at by Nelson the whole entire game. Because Nelson knew, like, Trayvon is a good athlete. The good guy's a stud, but he's just jumping too early.
Yeah.
And Nelson's like, dude, he is going too early. He happened Trayvon's first interception. He was clearly out of the box. They didn't call it. He almost had a drop interception thing in the second quarter that he was out of the box. They didn't call it. Nelson was getting aggravated, and then this happened. I don't think I have it on the highlight. When Nelson threw the pick, he runs to the referee and goes, "What the heck?" Again, like then the flag happened. Now the question we got on our Discord it was hard to try to re-answer this on Discord. Why are they challenging the jack out of the box? In NAL rules, a referee can look at any aspect of the play while it's being challenged. If someone it's an interception and challenge it, that means everything can be reviewed, including a jack out of the box, illegal defense, whatever. That's how they got it. Now, if it wasn't challenged, like let's just say it was incomplete and Albany didn't challenge it, they never would have found the illegal defense. The only reason why it popped up is because the referees had to look at every aspect of the play to see if it was catch. It was a catch, but they got Shorts off of a jack out of the box. I know a lot of Albany fans are mad about this, but watch the entire game and watch the interaction between Nelson and the referees the whole entire game, because Nelson was pointing out the whole entire game about Shorts being out of the box. And when they finally get the call and got it right, it's because Mason couldn't argue with this or agree with me. Quarterbacks, when they start telling the refs, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, the referee will go, "Hey, wait a minute. The quarterback's been telling me this the whole entire game. Maybe it's right." And then the review showed it, and bam. Like, I guarantee that was the Nelson nagging the refs the whole entire game could have resulted in why they looked at it, like within the challenge. It's like, that sparked something in their head. Yes, it was a big play, determined the game, but it was a right call by the refs. Yes, sometimes right calls do hurt people, fan bases. We've been on both ends of it, all of us as fans. In this sport, NBA, hockey, whatever, it's happened. In this case, it was a good call at the right time because it was a big game to determine the game. What happens if it was a no call that resulted in an Albany win? I guarantee San Antonio fans would be right now, where was the jack out of the box penalty? It would be the same way. But yes, it was a great call. I've had confirmation now by 3 people, now 4 because Mason's here, that it was a right call situation. And I'm just saying to the Albany fans, go rewatch the game. I know it's going hard for you guys to watch a game. Watch Nelson's interaction with the referee throughout the game on certain plays when you're within the 10-yard, the red zone or the blue zone. I've heard Albany calls it the blue zone, which I think is the red zone. That's where the linebacker can, has more room. Nelson's like, watch, he's leaving the box way too early, and he's already breaking into coverage way too early. And as the game progresses, you can hear it on the stream. It's pretty blatant. Nelson was not happy most of the game because of it. And it's just that at the climax of the game is when it was called. And if I was an Albany fan, I'd be pissed that I lost on the play like that. But at the same time, to get this game and make this game what it is, you have to stay firm on the rules. And it was a good call at the right time for the game. So, yeah, I'm done bickering. I got my point across.
Here's what's going on, right? So if you take it back to the top, right, of that, and I don't know how much control you have of it, Jim, whatever, but
I got all the
game, right? A little backstory, right? Earlier in the game, you were talking about how Arvell ran for a 13-yard touchdown untouched, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's because of this play, right? So when teams get in the red zone, right, we're talking close to the goal line, and they're in trips formation, meaning 3 receivers are on one side of the formation. There are a lot of defenses, a lot of jacks, including Trayvon. He's really good at it. You will literally look, he's doing it right there. You can see, and they actually score a touchdown because Arvell throws it up. On the snap, you will physically turn your back to the wall and wait and put your foot in the bucket, right? So you turn your back to the wall and you get as deep as you possibly can without being illegal. And as soon as the quarterback tries to throw it over your head to that back corner, you're going to take off and go try to pick it off, because that is the most common way. He even does it right there. Look at all the red zone plays in 3-by. Trayvon is, when I say 3-by, meaning trips, Trayvon is always going to turn, put his foot in the bucket, and get ready to run to that back corner, because that is one of the most common ways to score in the red zone. You put a guy in high motion or a big guy, and you run him behind the jack. Look, there he is again. You can see it right there. That's a great look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And you drop it in behind him, right? So what jacks are taught is scoot up a little bit, right? Because the rule is you can't get deeper than 5 yards. You can't get deeper than the umpire. So look where he is right there. He's at about 2.5 yards. He's putting his foot in the bucket, and he's ready to run back and try to pick that off. He's going to try to literally go ahead and position himself sideways and run back to guard that throw that Sam just threw right there.
You're almost describing like it's sorry to interrupt. You're almost describing like it's almost like a track sprinter. You know, got to get that right foot planted.
Because no matter how tall you are, a good quarterback is going to throw it over your head. Doesn't matter if you're 9 feet tall. He's going to throw it over your head. So what Trayvon's doing is he's using his speed as an advantage instead. He's going to put his foot right at 5 yards, right on the umpire. And as soon as the quarterback breaks his hands to go throw, he's going to break and go try to beat the ball there. The first one that we saw Rashad catch, he didn't get to because Arvell threw it up the field a little bit more, right? Mm-hmm. On this one, you can tell, I think it was Barnett that they were trying to get across there. They were trying to do the same thing. Trayvon got a better jump, right, to get to it. The problem was if you slow it down, like a lot of good jacks, he's pushing the envelope, right? Mm-hmm. And he's timing up when Arvell breaks his hand. However, the rule is when the ball leaves the quarterback's hand, right? That's usually the trigger is, hey, when the quarterback, right, releases the ball from his front hand to throw, they go, because it's so quick that you can't compute that. But when it's slowed down in slow-mo, you become illegal because you're moving deeper than 5 when the ball is getting through its release point, if you will. So it's a very, very technical thing. And I'm going to be honest, Trayvon is as good as there is at it, and he's a problem. That's why he's such a good jack.
Oh, because he is.
10 times and he'll get away with 9 of them. But the problem is he didn't get away with that one. And I looked at it. We talked about it off camera. I also thought he was illegal. I thought he was a half a yard too deep, but a half a yard too deep is too deep. And I thought he was illegal because of that. And it wasn't anything he did wrong. It's the way he plays the game, and it's why it makes him so good. It just the replay caught him on that one. It just is what it is. In my opinion.
That's the thing. If you don't have that replay, honestly, if he gets a clean pick and the sky judge in that arena doesn't maybe make a call there, we could be talking about this complete opposite. Because again, it was a good pick, but like that is a very fringe. Like he's right on that threshold of a line. I think of it like soccer with the offsides calls. You got to be basically pushing that limit at that position all the time, but you can get burned if you just get over that line, and that review system definitely burned him right there. As much as, I know he's upset. He and others are upset, but that looks like the right call to several other people that have done analysis. That is kind of what we've gotten with it. looks like the right call.
Mason, as a former quarterback, do you point out defenses to referees about, hey, watch this guy, he's not doing this? Or
1,000%. Yeah. Absolutely.
Does that get to?
I would be shocked if he didn't.
But does that get to referees at the end of the game, or they're like, wait a minute, he didn't mention this. Let me keep an eye on it.
I mean, I would like to think so. I mean, I guess you have to.
I guarantee if your name was Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, yeah.
I would like to think that I'm persistent enough that eventually that they'll listen to me. Eventually, I also played for so long. I'm so old. I knew a lot of the white hats by the end, so I'd be able to be like, yeah, come on, he's illegal. My favorite thing to do was, the Jacks that I played against will attest to this. Like in practice or even anything, I would just start yelling out Jack's illegal when he was perfectly legal before the snap and make him really self-conscious just to kind of slow him down. Never worked, but it was fun to do anyway. But 100%. The point is you're in the ref's ear all day if there's any way you can get an advantage at all. Like on that one, I'd be yelling that Haig didn't have enough daylight between the MAC and the D-line. I'd be yelling that the DN's too wide. He's not covering the tap. They're always looking for something. There's so many rules. You're always looking for calls, and then you just hope when you need one, you get one.
For overall, besides that play, Shorts played a hell of a game
For sure.
He's
really good.
Last week against Orlando, he was causing havoc. We've mentioned him before last year, how when he got back to Albany was a completely different team.
Yeah.
When they were, I think, 4-4, then he got there. Then they finished the season like 5-1 or something like that. Like Albany was a completely different beast. It's just there's one thing about this freaking sport that we love. There's always one controversial play, and the biggest game always happens in the biggest games of the year. Is always that controversial play in the biggest game of the year that makes the most noise.
Yeah.
But overall, like again, yes, Albany won. San Antonio won this game by 2 points. And honestly, I want to let's get to week 7. I want to see round 2 of this game already. I really do, because I think me and Zach said this in the preseason that this is first of 3 matchups between these two teams. We think these two teams are going to be playing for a championship, and it depends on where it's going to be held. Is it going to be held in San Antonio, or is it going to be held in Albany? So there's a lot of things that also, besides that, things that we can point out in this game that really, they're standouts in this game. Yeah. One thing which very not really surprising, is that Drew Pearson really was a no factor in kicking. The kicking game was odd for Albany this time around because Noah Roscoe was there, and you got a young guy who got his first extra point. But one thing I noticed is that the extra points came back and bit Albany a little bit. So the little small things there. But one thing I did enjoy about this game, honestly, was Darius Prince. I don't care what people say what that man is. He is the best receiver in this game, and he proves it each and every week that he is the best receiver in this game. Give him the GOAT mask. Give him the GOAT status. That dude, no matter whoever's covering, Marvin Ross, Kylie Rashad, anybody, like Kenny Veal, Misha Robinson. We can go back to Bobby Wagner days and the original AFL. He owns him. I'm just each and every week I get more and more impressed by Darius Prince, how he puts the team on his back to win this game. Because when they needed a big play this week against San Antonio, number 6 was on the other end of the football. And again, 2-point game, exciting matchup. Albany's 1-1. Yes, San Antonio won. But you still got Darius Prince. You still got San Castronova. You still got a squad. Like, rebound. Like I said earlier, I feel bad for Carolina. I really do. Because I think Albany's going to go in there with a mission this week. And, we're going to get this L off our mind and go out fresh and strong in week 3 or 4. Dang, I almost said week 2. So we're going back in time. But, yeah, again, each and every week, I want to say this again, each and every week, I'm more and more impressed by Darius Prince. I really am. That dude is a beast. Sorry, I'm done on flabbergasting over it.
It's hard to not be. And again, I think if you're the Empire, you got to kind of keep an eye out for the status on him because, I think to me, that's something that they haven't been able to do as much this year in my eyes is really find that number 2. I know Hollis has had a little involvement. Markel Wade does, but it doesn't feel like it was as involved. You don't have a Cameron Solomon, Jordan Smith performance this past week. You don't have a Philip Barnett usually / Khalil Rashad performance this week. It really was more Darius Prince, and then kind of every now and then you'd find a pass. So that's something, the more this goes, if you keep seeing him get banged up, but you don't want that to happen. Obviously, it still can, but the way he was hobbled with the ankle, that does kind of concern me. Prince can grade it out, but I think that's more of an incentive, again, to kind of go back to practice and go, okay, guys, we need to get a few more bodies involved here, in this passing game, so we don't have to get our main MVP receiver bashed every game the way he was as well. So I keep that in mind. I also got to say my own praises for Khalil Rashad because, again, rewatching that last play of the game, I didn't pay attention to his route, but kind of seeing it leading in. I mean, talk about Shorts. He made sure he got as much of a hit as he could to chip him. And I thought any average receiver would have fallen down, and Arvell Nelson maybe doesn't find a person to pass to, and you get a sack there on a coverage sack. And Rashad had the core strength to stay up, flip himself around for an out route, and get some space separated to where he could get that completion at the end zone. So that was impressive. He was also impressive all throughout this game too. He's been even possibly better than last year in my eyes. I think this was actually hinted to us after the game. We were talking with some of the folks from SA, and he's taking martial arts to help with some of his core strength, which is impressive as well, just to kind of build upon himself from last year. And you can see it in some of these catches. That one in particular, I think if you don't have that training and that extra bit onto him, he does fall down. But that takes a little bit extra to kind of keep your balance and move. But definitely worth the mention. Albany, still one of the best teams in the league, but I do think you gotta shake this off and go in. Carolina it's not exactly the same team, but Malik Henry showed 2 weeks ago that he can guide this team very well. So you can't have a mental hiccup 2 weeks in a row and get behind as fast as you can, because the Cobras would love to get a game up after losing such a close contest week 1 to San Antonio.
Yeah.
So yeah. not as what to really say. I think that about sums up.
You're right.
I bantered long enough in this episode.
I will say this: if it's any consolation, Albany fans, if you feel really bad about the jack out of the box, go look at the game-winning play against San Antonio. He was out of the box. He was out of the box again. So whatever. It all comes out in the wash. But you're right. Incredible individual play by Rashad. Incredible individual play by Arvell to keep that alive, keep his eyes downfield, not freak out. Sometimes it's really hard to stay in the pocket when nobody's open for that long. So two really, really good football teams there and two really good quarterbacks. It was really fun to watch.
Absolutely. Well, and with that, we will bid you adieu for our rebound episode here for week 3. We're going to move on down the line. Week 4 is coming on up. We'll be having a new episode out, of course, this Friday for you later on with a special guest in tow. Going to hold that one for a second because, might not build up a bit of the excitement for who's coming on. We'll reveal that later this week. But just to reiterate again, new week of football. Mustangs going to the Warbirds, and then Sunday is a 2-parter slate with the Empire going to the Cobras. Predators coming off a bye week and looking to find some way to right the ship as they will go to Jacksonville. That should be a pretty crowded game with those two fan bases kind of moving about. They've been doing a really good job getting those two involved and getting a rivalry built up between them the last 3 years. So fun game. I think it'll be on television for that and on YouTube. But until then, I'm Zach Kyleman. I got, of course, the MVP himself, Mason Espinosa, and, of course, my show MVP here and Jim Renier over here. We're signing off. Yeah. Have a good one, guys. See you in the game day episode 98, this Friday. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Bernier.